There are two types of women in the Bible. There is the godly woman, the Proverbs 31 woman, the Esther, the Ruth, the Hannah kind of woman, prayerful, bold, wise, God-fearing. This woman's worth is far above rubies and pearls, according to the Bible. And then there's the ungodly woman. That's who I would like to talk about today. There are three ungodly women in the Bible that we should be aware of. But before we dive in, let me just say that the Bible gives us several warnings concerning the evil influence of ungodly women. Proverbs 9, verse 13, in the Amplified Translation, the Bible says, "The foolish woman is restless and noisy. She is naive and easily misled and thoughtless, and knows nothing at all of eternal value." Proverbs 21, verse 19, talks about an ungodly woman saying, "It is better to dwell in a desert land than with a contentious and troublesome woman." The ungodly woman is the one the Bible speaks of in Proverbs 11, verse 22, and says, "As a ring of gold in a swine's snout, so is a beautiful woman who is without discretion. Her lack of character mocks her beauty." The Bible is very clear when differentiating a godly woman and an ungodly woman. So let's take a look at the identities of some of these women. The first woman we'll look at is Herodias. Herod Antipas was married to a woman named Herodias, but both of them had been divorced. And this was something that John the Baptist objected to. John the Baptist publicly denounced their marriage and labeled it as adultery. In Matthew 14, we read about how John had previously rebuked Herod by reminding him that it was unlawful for him to be with Herodias. So Herod had him put into prison for her sake. Now, Herodias must not have enjoyed being convicted of sin. In fact, she was angered by John the Baptist and his rebukes. So she decided to take matters into her own hands. Matthew chapter 14, verse 6 to 8 says, "But when Herod's birthday came, the daughter of Herodias danced before the company and pleased Herod, so that he promised with an oath to give her whatever she might ask. Prompted by her mother, she said, 'Give me the head of John the Baptist here on a platter.'" I want you to notice how bitterness and anger had so consumed Herodias. When her daughter danced in front of Herod, he promised to give her whatever she would request. Herodias took this as an opportunity to take revenge on John, persuading her daughter to ask for John's head on a platter. Her daughter did as she requested, and as a result, John was beheaded. Herodias was most certainly an ungodly woman, and her actions show her to be an immoral, bitter, manipulative woman. John was a servant of God, but that didn't matter to her. It's difficult to comprehend that a disagreement or a word of rebuke from someone else would motivate a person to murder, but this is how bitterness works. It causes that person's heart to grow cold, leading them to become irrational in how they think and behave. Herodias hated John so much that it clouded her mind and allowed her to take extreme measures in order to satisfy her pride and self-importance. She wanted the life of a man of God simply because he disapproved of her actions. And just look at the evil influence of Herodias. Not only did she commit the sin of intending to murder John, she made her daughter participate in the evil act. She used her relationship with her daughter to her own advantage, influencing and manipulating her to make an atrocious request which would end the life of one of the greatest prophets. Herodias' actions are an example of how an ungodly woman can use her position or power to cause destruction. However, a godly woman influences those around her in a positive way, acting as peacemaker and leading people toward God and the way of righteousness. The second case we'll look at is Delilah. The story of Samson and Delilah is an interesting story. Samson was a man who had supernatural strength, but his downfall came at the hands of Delilah. Samson was a man of immense physical strength. However, his weakness was the beauty of Delilah. And before we take an even closer look at Delilah, I want you to understand just how unique of an individual Samson really was. He was uniquely gifted by God and did some incredible things. The Bible says he tore a lion apart with his bare hands. He defeated 1,000 men with the jawbone of a donkey as his only weapon. So what was so special about Delilah that she would bring down a man who was so mightily anointed? Well, my friends, let me tell you that Delilah was bad, yes, but she wasn't the real cause of Samson's downfall. The real cause of Samson's downfall was sin, disobedience, and lust. And so the devil simply took the opportunity that Samson gave him, and the enemy used Samson's weakness to destroy him. Delilah was planted in Samson's life by the devil. And don't get me wrong, in this story, Samson is just as guilty as Delilah, as they both participated in sin. However, I want to show you how the devil can bring people into your life who appear to care for you, to love you, but underneath the surface, they are seeking to destroy you. Now, the Amplified Translation of the Bible says in Judges 16:4-6, "After this, he fell in love with a Philistine woman living in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. So the 5 lords, governors of the Philistines, came to her and said to her, 'Persuade him, and see where his great strength lies, and find out how we may overpower him, so that we may bind him to subdue him. And each of us will give you 1,100 pieces of silver.' So Delilah said to Samson, 'Please tell me where your great strength lies, and with what you may be bound and subdued.' The first problem is that Samson was a judge who God appointed over Israel. God had often warned the Israelites against marrying or having a relationship with those outside the Israelite community. Often such women or men would lead entire families astray, chasing after idols or foreign gods. Now, Samson did not guard his heart. He was led by his eyes instead of faith, and so he fell in love with someone he was never meant to fall in love with. He became yoked with someone he was never meant to. And from the very beginning, Delilah was already looking to gain at the expense of Samson. She was offered a great amount of silver, and because her heart wasn't pure. Now Judges 16:9-12 says, "Now she had men lying in ambush in an inner room, and she said to him, 'The Philistines are upon you, Samson.' And he broke the cords as a string of tow breaks when it touches fire. So the secret of his strength was not discovered. Then Delilah said to Samson, "See now, you have mocked me and told me lies. Now please tell me truthfully how you may be bound." And he said to her, "If they bind me tightly with new ropes that have not